Hey there, I'm Parker X, and I led tech for a startup that did over $50 million in sales. And on this channel, I go through AI strategy and the things that I'm doing in the field because I started a bunch of different ideas after that exit that didn't work out, but required me to be coding, required me to learn all the AI things. And I'm trying to push the limits of what you can do with it when it comes to actually making money. Not making hobby projects. Trust me, I did that for way too long. So we're on the road to 100K a month, and I will be going through a couple different things in the videos. So here we are. I'm trying to get a better format for this. What I think makes the most sense right now is we'll do some AI news. We'll do questions and answers as people start to discover the channel. We got a couple questions, which is awesome. We'll do, yeah, the AI news, and not just like, hey, I'm another verbal newsletter, because there's enough newsletters out there, but just the stuff that's interesting. If there's nothing that's interesting, I'm not going to talk about it because what's the point? And I'm fixing my camera while we're talking to each other. Okay. And then some strategy stuff, and then actually building something. So let's get into it. The first one, somebody asked about validating ideas, and it's funny because I have a lot of experience doing this the right way and the wrong way. Let's see. This is on the Daily Uploads channel. Cool. We got a number 1 out of 8 video. That means 13 views. Cool. This guy, XZ Jordy, says, helpful suggestion, cover a topic on how to validate ideas. Okay, cool. So I think there's different levels to this, right? Like I was really, really good at validating ideas when when we were like going from 1.0 to 1.n. And I'm assuming you're not talking about that, but I want to just distinguish the two because if you've ever read the book, which if you haven't, it's kind of like a manual on making products. But in the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, he covers a bunch of this about how to be different, how you kind of want to operate as a monopoly if possible, and how to validate your ideas. So he's going to have a way better approach to it, but instead of going and reading like a 200-page book, I'll try to give you my best rendition of how I think about it. But there are two camps. So you have camp 1 was 0 to 1, which we'll cover, and then we have camp 2, which is 1.0 to 1.n, n being any future version. Now, in this case, we'll start with the second one because it's a little bit easier. But if you already have something that's working defined as, let's say, 10K a month, and if you have something that is working, then the easiest way to do that is, in my opinion, just to go and do a prioritization kind of exercise. And it's called ICE. And each one of these stands for impact, confidence, and ease. And this is actually going to be the same thing over here. You'd still use ICE, but you'll have less information because you don't have any customers, but you can get information. So there's usually some phases to this. So in both camps, you're still going to want to do some ideation. Obviously, like you're going to be validating something, you need to come up with the ideas. And ideation should be inclusive of research, which you could use Gemini's research. And within the research phase, you could be looking for macro trends. And that could be going to, something like Statista. And there's a bunch of websites like this. I've spent a bunch of my life just going on these websites to try to put together pitch decks to raise money. I was able to raise like 151K off of just doing stuff like this. But I don't know if you went, let's say like chart for world statistics is a really good one as well. But if you're trying to, or our world data, if you're trying to validate a problem from a macro perspective and to see if there's a growing market, because you always want to be in a growing market. I've done this the wrong way where I didn't do this exercise and I tried to build something in music. And what I wish I had done to save like 18 months of my life would be to do a little bit more research up front on the macro trend of realizing there are 0 companies in music that are making money. Like, that should have been like, that would be how you validate it. That would be a no-go, forget it, especially if it's your first time going after a venture. You wanna do something that you don't have to go against the grain. But, like, let's say you're trying to validate maybe, like let's look at what they have for artificial intelligence so we can see, like, maybe some growth metrics. And then in the research section, you could see how much investment's going into artificial intelligence by type. You can see 2021, huge spike. A lot of the charts in terms of money will always spike in 2021. That's because we had this thing called the zero interest rate phenomena, which was COVID hits and then we print a lot of money. And so we can kind of like be armchair macroeconomics people and just like say that that's just going to be a chop. But you'd look at this and you'd be like, okay, like if I'm building an AI, like there's a nice little macro thing going on, right? So that'd be an easy one. And then on your research phase, I would do micro trends. So these ones can actually go against the macro trends, but the macro ones typically will matter more. I'll use the use case of my startup that I did that was essentially just like Airbnb for musicians. And the micro trend was that musicians are pissed, are mad, musicians get ripped off. And I tried to apply my skill set of marketplaces because I had scaled one of those with a bunch of friends and we had done it, successfully to 73 million at our peak. I always say 50 because that's around where we sold because we did go down due to not raising money and different dynamics. But, if you have this micro trend where you're like, okay, like musician, you have the actual venues themselves, and then you have the booking agent. You have these 3 parties going on, and you have this trend where like a lot of the money just kind of like gets deleted between these steps. And because of that dynamic, you can go on to Reddit, you can go on to any like forum or community about musicians at any level, like basically the 99% that are not at the very tippy top, and you'll find that they're mad. So you want to get this, and even if it validates your idea, it's it could, you have to weigh this into the whole kind of process of validating it when you're doing your research. So cool. Then you did the micro trends. Again, like if there's a macro trend that's saying Spotify, which is the biggest one, is still not profitable, then it would outweigh the micro trend. So now you've done some research. The next step that I would do is something along the lines of like, there's a business idea prompt, which we can test out. This is like a newer way of doing it, and it would save you a whole lot of time by kind of poking holes in things. The other manual way of doing this is just write a one pager, and it's called the PFAQ. And I would pick one of these options. So, like, you can do step one would be the research, step two would be one of the following within two. So, 2C is the YC application. Y Combinator, if you're not familiar, the most popular kind of Silicon Valley darling for accelerator. And they give you 500K. And just the application alone is something that is kind of ingrained in my brain because I've applied 7 times. The first time I got to the second stage and flew out and pitched the founder of Gmail. But the application requires you to really think through the idea. And it's better to do all this stuff before you go and build it. Like there's a really good, like Abe Lincoln basically says something along the lines of like, if you were cutting down a tree and you had 8 hours to do it, you'd spend 6 hours sharpening. and then 2, shopping. So it's something like that. But the idea being like, okay, if you're going to sit there and just whack away at this thing, the tree being your successful idea in the marketplace and making money, instead of having this dull axe, aka a dull idea that has not been through the idea maze, then you're going to waste a lot of time, which I really, really relate to. So it's very, very important. And this is kind of what I did when I decided to go after making content as a means for marketing my communities and building personal brand. And I think that that exercise alone like made me think through like who are the people I'm talking to. Like even looking at this whiteboard in front of me, it's like, okay, I'm talking to a mass audience of people that are new to AI. There's this massive trend that's going on where Goldman Sachs is talking about 300 million people being displaced by AI by 2030. Cool. That's something to bring in. That's a huge macro trend. The investment's also off the chart. The micro trends are basically that every single niche is trying to figure out what's going on. The micro trend that I'm going after is the developer trend around AI kind of writing all the code. How do you leverage it? How do you stay on it? And that's where these videos come from. Is like, I'm going to do this anyways, so I might as well share it. So then once you've done all this stuff, then I would say you can go into kind of like that ICE method. And when you're doing that, you'll just take your spreadsheet and was this under 1.0 or 1.9? This will apply to both. So we can just kind of, this will be an umbrella. The ICE method would then be, okay, you have your spreadsheet and it would be idea. And it just is a one-liner that explains either the feature, like what is it, how does it provide value, how does it work? And that one-liner is something that comes out of the YC app. So I am having a flashback to pitching my idea to the founder of Gmail. And I was like so nervous. And I went in there and they say, don't use marketing jargon about your idea. And I went in and I said, we're building metal. It's the, I think this is in like 2019 or 18 or something. I said something along the lines of metal is building the health dashboarding of 2020. So it's like super, like that'd be a good hook maybe for a direct response ad, but it's not good for a technologist that's trying to define what it is. Something better would be B2C SaaS, B2C health tech SaaS to answer all the questions you have about your body, like something like that. Because then it defines who it's for. It's for consumers. It defines what the niche is. It's health. It defines what it is. It's a dashboard for understanding your body. So then you'd have your idea, and then you'd write down the impact. And all these are 1 through 10. You'd write down the confidence and then the level of ease to implement it. So when you're going through this exercise, these first 2 ones are pretty easy and they all ladder up to a goal, right? So in 1.n, your goal, like this is the real differentiator, is like what the goal is. So if you already have something that's doing, I'll use Delivery Dudes as a case with food delivery. If our goal is to reduce the delivery times by 5 minutes, because we knew that every 1 minute meant like tens of thousands of dollars to our bottom line, then, we'd make a lot of money if we did this, and then we can reinvest that capital. If that's our goal in the 1.0 to 1.n, then we'd list out different ideas like, oh, if we added the better notes to the delivery driver app, if we added something to the restaurant app that had a notification to call them instead of just ringing the tablet because it's a busy night, then that might help. There's a lot of different ideas that you'd list out. And then you'd end up giving them scores. So what level of impact do you think this is going to have going towards that goal? So, you have like idea 1 and you'd say, I think out of 10, this is a 9. And I'm not that confident. Like if it did work with calling them, then I think that would be a huge impact because most of our restaurants are really busy. We get our biggest order spike volume. Like you're basically painting this picture where it's like, okay, I know throughout the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I know Sunday, I know that like we're pretty much like this, and then we go like this every week, like really, really high over here, and then it comes back down. So I know that if we're making the bulk of the cash right here, that if we brought in this busy notification thingy, that it'd have really high impact, but I'm not that confident in it because if they can't hear the tablet, which is already loud, why would they hear the phone? Maybe that I'm just, I'm not sure. So I'd give it maybe like a 6. And then this ease question comes into the like technical implementation of it. So then that's when you're going and you're like, okay, well, I know we have for this phone thing, it's like, well, we have an API and, you'd have a technical person here if you're working with others. We have our API, it's written in Go. We've got the tablet app, it's written in Flutter because we were cross platform. This tablet, what else? We probably need like Twilio. Do we need it to be in, today's day and age? Would it be like an 11 Labs voice? Do we need some sort of IVR? Are they able to call it back? You go through this kind of question, and this is like called scope hammering. So then you might list like what are the things to be able to do this such that the ease is high. So when you go through that with someone technical, then you end up with a score and you get the average of that. And then you have your ICE score, right? So at the end of the day, like 967, let's just call it like 7.1 or whatever. I'm not doing public math here, but if I go through and I'd say, okay, now I have this list of all the ideas, I'd go through it and I'd rank it in descending order. So it's going with the top one that should be the easiest, that I have the highest level of confidence, the most conviction around its impact, and it's going to be the easiest thing to do. So that same thing would be done for a new idea. And I kind of, as you do this more and more and more and more, you really start to like ingrain this process of, impact, confidence, and ease into how you think about ideas. And then, you'll start using stuff like scope hammering and all of those. So I hope that was helpful. And if you guys have other questions, then we can do stuff just like we did. Probably yapped a little too long. It was like 15 minutes, but it was the first question. So, and then that brings up this other topic, which is just the power of compounding. And everyone knows that investing always talks about this. So it's like, you know, if I do a compound interest calculator, what it means is that if you DCA'd or dollar cost averaged into a stock, let's say I have 1,000 or let's say I have $100 and every year I add $100 and the interest rate is 6%, and I have 30 years to do that. And it compounds 12 times annually because let's just do one. Basically, the future value would be $8,954, which is a lot more than just adding $100 a year because that 6% rolls into the next 6%. It compounds on one another. It's the classic snowball. And I wanted to bring this up because it applies to everything that you do in life. It really does. Where it's like, if I use that same concept of the DCA, the dollar cost average, where if you had, 52 weeks across the year, I'm not going to write, one time each. I'm not going to do 1 through 52. But if you did it 52 times and you each time got a little bit better at whatever the thing is that you're doing, like in my case, it's these videos. So I'm going to not just do it 52 times a year, but I'm going to do it 90 times in the next 90 days. Then every time you get a little bit better, and every time that you get a little bit better, it stacks on one another. And it goes from this like really, really heavy climb, which is, you got your your sticks out and you're climbing Mount Everest to get up there. But then you start to get momentum and it becomes easier and easier and easier. And I just wanted to bring that up because I'm noticing it too, where when I made these videos, maybe like the third time I tried YouTube, I think I've tried YouTube like 100 times, but it was a lot harder because I didn't get in the cadence of doing the daily habit to be able to do the thing. And when you don't have that daily action that you have to take, which for me right now, that I'm trying to gain, so-called compounding interest on, like the daily compounding list, which is like also comes from a really popular program called 75 Hard. It's like the most popular fitness thing. And they say like 15 minutes of reading, 2 workouts at 45 minutes each, 1 gal water. What else is in that? You do a daily like accountability photo because at the end of it, you get to see how your body changed. No sugar, no alcohol. And I think that's pretty much it. And then the second level of that, they actually say like to add whatever it is that's for your occupation or goal that you have. But for me, I've done this, I think successfully like 2 times, and then I've started it and then manipulated it like 5 times. But the daily compounding for me right now is the daily videos, right? So I could hardly use this tablet, I don't know, a week ago, and I had 0 subscribers on this channel. And now we're at 40. And I'm learning how to write in public. I'm learning how to speak in public. The less times that I say the words across a 90-minute video or 60-minute video, the better that I become. I can kind of see that in real time because you won't hear these ums in the videos because I go to Premiere Pro and I do text-based editing, which is an AI feature. And I can see that at the start, I had 100 ums across an hour, which is very misleading and confusing for listeners. You're trying to be authentic. You're trying to be an authority and someone to listen to. And when you hear someone say, well, ooh, you've lost interest, they've lost their confidence. So for me, it's the daily videos, it's the Upwork outreach, it's the blog posts, and then it's the addition of new AI automations. Addition or changing of. So I wanted to bring that up because if you're trying to do anything in life, the power of compounding definitely applies to it. It allowed me to do what I do now, which is I had a job and then I invested all the time, half my paycheck every month, and it rendered me a lot of cash to be able to do stuff. Another idea that I saw from Kat Cole, who she started, no, she did not start. She led marketing for Yum Brands, which is gigantic hospitality slash food holdco. I think it's Taco Bell, Cinnabon, all these things that are horrible for you, but she did a great job marketing them. And she's gone on, I think she does Athletic Greens now. But she brought this thing up of the hot shot rule, which is the act of thinking of someone that you admire and then pausing and reflecting and asking what they would do in your situation and then answering what they would do and then acting on it. And that has to do with a lot of different areas of life where people that are successful, they don't bring emotion into business. They don't sit there and think about the call that they had or the email that they received or the rejection that they had over and overanalyze it. They just move to the next thing. So that's something I'm trying to bring into what I do because it allows you to move faster. So thanks for the question. I know I went on and on, but the next is on news. So everyone on Twitter in the little Twitter bubble has been saying MCP a lot. It's funny because it came out in November. why is it so popular now? Well, it's allowing people to connect different tools to their models within their AI editor. So it's becoming more and more popular. And there's also this trend of LLMs.text. So I think both of these are going to be foundational to the way that we develop software. And frankly, the way that other tools beyond development tools communicate with LLMs. It probably means that a lot of companies that jumped on the bandwagon of adding copilots maybe didn't need to do that. And what I mean is if you have something, let's say I have a documenting tool. I wrote a new, or no, let's use something that exists already. Let's say I have ClickUp. Oops, I'm a product manager at ClickUp. Now I got to refresh. I have this pen and I accidentally click stuff and then I have to refresh. But let's say I'm ClickUp, and this may not be the best example because it's gigantic, but if I needed to add AI stuff, it would make sense to have a lot of it be internal, such as writing slash editing docs or tasks. But if they start building in custom integrations, I think that's where MCP or some sort of protocol will replace it, which is great because integration software sucks to write and it doesn't do anything that unique. There's really no value in the actual IP. It's just requirement to be able to bridge to apps. So right now in tools outside of AI editors, you have to write these custom things that are the bridge. I keep things either bidirectionally, so a two-way where they're watching one another and it's in real time, or unilaterally where it's just one way. So I think that MCPs are going to be the foundation for another protocol. Maybe it will be MCP, but I don't think so. Where you can just bridge the gap between things. But there's a big problem that's going on with these. And there's a big problem that's going on with another kind of step in the right direction, but not the ultimate kind of way of doing things, is with the LLMs.text. So if you're unfamiliar with those, I pasted some here where when you're developing software, you obviously have the phrase R&D. A lot of people forget about this one, like this R, but it is really important. And so when you're going to do something, you used to a year, maybe 3 years ago, would go to Stack Overflow when you had a question, or you go to the documents. And you'd spend a lot of time doing that. And then you go develop. The vibe code thing totally destroys that idea. And that's why there's so much crap getting built. Unless someone's actually good at coding we can get with, but that's a different topic. But the LLMs.text basically says, okay, I am Supabase, provider of a software toolkit or service. In this case, it's a backend as a service. It has authentication, databases, all this stuff. Well, database with Postgres. But the problem is when you go to their site, there's just a ton of different documentation. And it's not that that's inherently a problem. It's great that they have all this stuff. But when you're trying to get something done and you want the LLM to do it, these documents typically change pretty often. And you may have issues when something changes in here because it is going to reference the wrong source material. So when you're looking at this, you need to know, okay, well, I'm actually not doing database work, I'm doing storage. Those are different. Sound similar, but they sure are different. And I need to do standard uploads. And I need to do standard uploads in Python. And I need to do standard uploads in Python for a content type of JPEG. Well, it turns out I just had to navigate from docs to guides to storage to uploads to standard uploads and then query against what type of language it was. So you can by all means, just paste in docs/guides into Windsurf or Cursor, but it's not going to do that great. And that's because it's just a lot of information to go through. Like if I looked at this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 different areas to begin with. And then in this one, this storage one, this is really small. If I went to database within those 8, I don't even need to count these. That's a lot of stuff. And even if I click into one of them, then I have even more stuff. So the way that the companies are trying to solve for this, that provide all this information, is with these .text files. So the way they're doing it, most companies that have it, is you just go to their root and then do a /LLMs.txt, which means in their public folder. You can publicly see this. And then you'll see they're broken apart by the area that we just saw. They don't even have all of them. They just have the SDKs. So when I go into here, now it's taking this JavaScript reference, and it's basically a very large and detailed markdown file with snippets in it, which is content that is optimized for AI readability. Very different. You and I wouldn't want to look at this. This is really drab. It doesn't have the cool gradients. It doesn't do it for us. But for a machine, it's going to love it, right? So a lot of people just don't know that that exists. And it doesn't matter how many YouTube videos or Twitter posts go out about it. It won't go to the masses until it's a lot easier. And that's something I saw from a dev tool creator. I think his name is Dax. He makes this thing called SST. That's besides the point. But he mentions that his tool is getting a bad reputation because people that are trying to use it, instead of the old way, which is if we storyboarded this, it'd be okay, the dev is here and he's reading the docs. He finds out about this new thing, he checks the docs. If he's lazy, he used to just go to Stack Overflow. That's no longer the case. If he is savvy, he would go to GitHub and search an operator with maybe like TypeScript as the language and then the name of the package. So you could see someone that implemented it on an open source perspective. But no one does this anymore, at least the vast majority of new people. And he wants to take advantage of them. He wants them to know about his tool and use it and be happy. But instead, they go in and there's no more docs. It's just either chat.com or an LLM that's running right here. And so what happens is this may know about the package that's called SST. I think that's what it's called. But the problem is the model, aka the brain that's running this, it's trained on old info. So the cutoff might be October 2024, but guess what? That's going to be on like version 1.5. And we've gotten from 1.5 to 1.6 to 1.7 to 2.1 to 2.5. We might see like a whole jump in how the package works. And so when they go in and they're yapping and they're like, this thing's broken. Well, guess what? It's because you're on an old version. And even if they had the wherewithal to go in and add it into Cursor, you still run back into that problem I was talking about, where it's like, you have the things that are just so deeply nested. So that's what this tries to solve. I think somebody will build something that basically fixes the distribution problem. It's not a technical problem. I think that this sure can get better, where if these were existent for every single dev tool out there, which the ones that are on top of their stuff are doing this, then it's no longer really a technical problem. It's a distribution problem. And my forecast or prediction for this is that you'll see the IDEs do this eventually, but it will first be like, I think this is the kind of end game. is the IDE will be able to recognize, it'll say, hey, like you have these packages. And we noticed that there's not only LLMs.txt, there's text support for it, but there's also an MCP for it. And then it'll be some sort of little native pop-up that most people ignore, but if they're smart enough, they'll hit cool. And that'll probably happen in the order of Cursor and Windsurf, and then GitHub VS Code will show up like 3 years later. More realistically, because we've seen this before, is in the next, call it 3 months, we'll see it in an extension called Klein. This is the one that leads the pack and everybody copies. So I'm guessing they'll be the first to do this, which, the feature would be MCP plus .txt scan / apply, or scan and apply. So it'd go through, it says, oh, whoa, you've got Supabase. Guess what? We noticed that it has these things. We just applied it for you. It'd probably be an auto opt-in because this would be so valuable for so many people that it should just be in the box. I think they'll do it first. And then shortly after, you'll see a fast follow from Cursor. So who knows between these two? I think it'll be Cursor first to follow. And then later you'll have VS Code. But that is a problem. If you guys didn't know about that, start using those. Next up is some builds. Let's do some builds. We're 37 minutes. We'll try to fly through this. So this 5th grade writer thing, I want to build something that makes me a better writer, that makes other people better writers. And I watched a video just before this, and it dawned on me that the best communicators in the world write at a level between 3rd and 5th grade, which is crazy. So you look at people like Steve Jobs, and you're like, wow, this guy invents. He is so smart. He must have this like crazy technical vernacular where he's saying stuff, like hertz. He's saying hertz. He's saying gigabytes. He's saying all these things. Well, guess what? He doesn't say any of that. Instead, he uses simple language, the classic one-liner of 1,000 songs in your pocket, which went uber viral. And then even more monumental was the 2007 release of the iPhone. And if you take his speech and you transcribe it, you can run it with Whisper and then throw it into something that analyzes, like Hemingway editor, which I needed. I do have it. Great. If you take his and you put it into here, it will tell you the readability of it and the grade. And I think that Hemingway, it says no AI. Oh, it does have AI now. I'm going to have to check that out after this. But I want something that does this in my content pipeline because I want everything that comes out on the internet to be at a level that everyone understands and it's more memorable. So other examples, I don't care about your politics, but Trump it's not even up for debate. He's one of, if not the best communicator on planet Earth right now because he's able to get a majority of the country to buy into his ideology. He wouldn't even use that word. And I think it's a psyop where a lot of people that are smart will want to use these words to impress others. There are definitely times and places for complex language because it actually saves you words. There's one word that all of us together know what it means, and it's going to save us going through stuff. Like if I said rag and you're an AI, you'd know what that is. But I'd never use that for writing in public because no one's going to get it unless I know I'm talking specifically to those types of people. But Trump uses really simple language. His speech when he announced running was kind of the quintessential example of this, where it's written as a 3rd grader. There's nothing complex in it, but the topics are crazy. He talks about how politicians are not suited for the job, how he's going to fix China, how he hasn't done anything impressive in a long time. And the same thing is seen with Mr. Beast, largest YouTuber, writes like a fourth grader. Eric, another popular YouTuber, his most popular video, written like a fourth grader. So I want to build something that does this. And I think there's no better opportunity than to kind of I'll just sketch it out. What would this look like? I think the version one, in terms of going back to earlier with the ICE framework, like I can just shorthand this where I know that I can run the calc in my head roughly. So maybe the first version of this is just a keyword expander or keyboard text expander. These will work for one-shotting small amounts of text. So the use case would be that I'm writing an email or a message or a YouTube comment or something that is 1 to 4 sentences, and I want to have it be stronger. So I could write something that would require some sort of small prompt. An example of this is when I hit the text key and I go like this and I do GPT concise. It expands and it says, I want you to edit my writing. I'll share an excerpt with you to edit as follows. Make it more clear and more concise. Use simple words. Give me 3 variations, and here's the excerpt. So I have that, and it's super helpful. I use it dozens of times a day. And what I do is I just pop this open, and I do that, and then I paste in the piece of text that I'm working on. So I think this would be the easiest version of it, but I don't think that it would be what I'm going after because it doesn't cover my goal, which is I want every piece of my writing to be graded. Oops. To be graded because I want to see it before because I want to become a better writer. I don't want my muscles to atrophy. So I want to be able to get that feedback, get the smack on the hand saying, wow, you try to write for a PhD grad student. No. I want it to be graded, seen, then updated and sent. And this is for a content pipeline. So doing this keyboard expander would actually not solve my goal. So while I have a high level of confidence, I think that'd be really easy. In this world, the impact is 0, confidence is 0, level of ease is 10. So the score is not going to be good. Whereas if I said I want to add GPT module in make.com that adds, adds the prompt, which we'd need to meta prompt it. So that's really 2 steps. It does that. I know how to do those things. Those are easy. It has examples in it. So the job speech, maybe a Mr. B script, a snippet of it. And it notifies me before it goes out. So I could get some sort of pause with the grade. So you get a grade plus HITL. HITL means human in the loop. It means I need to do something before it continues. Not sure how I'd get the grade. So I'd actually be curious how Hemingway Editor does it. I'm building you are a helpful software development architect and are responsible for answering questions about software and how it works. Research how the user's topic is implemented in the real world. Find specific examples outlining the technical details and the algorithms used or libraries used, languages used. You might find this in podcast interviews or YouTube videos. In return, a product requirements document that outlines what it is, why it exists, how it works, any specific technologies that were used, and the user stories required to be able to build the given topic. And as I was saying that out loud, why I paused was I forgot that Gemini Deep Research is better than Grok now because it has access to YouTube and it's insane. So paste that in there and let it run. But that's besides the point. I would then take that research. I'm not going to let this hold up the video. I'd take that research and then I'd bring it into the ICE score. So that's a good example of how you would do that. And then what I do know is that this would be a 10 out of 10 on going towards my goal. I'm really confident in it. So I'd give it about an 8. And then 3 is TBD on the Gemini response. So that is something that we can think about building. The Gemini Assistant for agency work, this is just a use case I wanted to share because I just talked about Gemini's release yesterday, their updates, and I used it for a real life use case. So when I type in someone's name, let's say John Carmack. See how when I type in his name, he has more stuff than if I just typed in some nobody? Well, that's because he has a Google Knowledge Graph. And these require you being either famous or technically savvy. And I'm the second one. So how it works is Google needs to know who you are. It needs to know an overview of who you are. It needs to know information about your birth, your marital status. There's a bunch of different things in this overview panel. And then you also have this people also ask thing if you're really famous, but we wouldn't focus on that. But you get instantly legitimized when you have one of these. Let's say you have a client or you have someone that is just curious about who you are. If you typed in your name and you had this, insta legit. It's actually insane. And it's the same thing with companies. And it takes a while to get if you didn't take the steps that I'm about to explain. So one is obviously you need to be on all the different social media platforms. You need to be everywhere. You need to use the same name. Don't spell your middle name in one and not in the other because a robot's going to be reading this and trying to figure out if you deserve one of these. Other steps include getting backlinks. So that's where this gem could come in and be helpful. So if I go back in, I'm going to start the research. I'm going to open a new tab. And I think that's the same tab, but whatever. And what I did was the second step of it with getting that knowledge graph is feeding it information about yourself and asking it to go and find every link about you where you're mentioned for high domain ranking websites. So I say, I'm building out my Google Knowledge Graph and I need to get all the links that are high domain ranking that I appear on, read the following context of who I am, then conduct research to find a complete list of all the websites I appear on. I give it context about who I am, mimicking what we just saw here, right? And once I give it that, then I give it the links that I knew off the top of my head. So I had written a bunch of articles in 2018 on a website called Hacker Noon, and those are good. They're high quality links because Google is just going out and it's trying to figure out is this person legit, and they rank it in a bunch of different ways, but links is one of them. They index like billions and billions of pages, so you need to help them. And it goes off and it does that, and then it comes back and it shows me all the different links. And this is something that people do full time for a living as part of the SEO process. So this is just really helpful. I wanted to share it. You can see that it has a bunch of different things. You can go and read its thoughts if you want to. You can see the different websites that it came across. And I think that that would be a good gem. So let's see if we can't take it and make it. And then I can post it on the website. So if I go in here, I want to create a new gem and I'm going to call it SEO Deep Research Link Gatherer. And let's paste that in. Now, instead of this, because I want people to be able to do this, I'll put, I'm actually going to use XML just to beef this up a little. XML is the language that's used when these things scrape. Enter in a flashy, but not over the top, 2 to 5 sentence explanation of who you are, what you've done, why you're important. Include as much social proof as possible. Example, if you're a writer, include, I wrote an article in Forbes, or I have a best-selling Amazon Kindle book. If you're a programmer, you might write something about an award you won or some sort of accomplishment. Cool. So we have the context, links, all the tag there, close it out, links. That's not it. Let's go down to the bottom. Cool. So we have here, we have instructions, purpose, or goal. And then we'll close. I'm building out my new Google Knowledge Graph, and I need to, yeah, actually we can just include all that in goal. Close that out. If I wanted to beef this out, I would do step-by-step instructions that would look something like this. So I do instructions, open, I do instruction, open, and then I proceed to give it step-by-step instructions, but I think this is fine. Cool. And then I can add files to reference. That's great. So if I needed to, I could add some files. And then let's create it. When I hit save, let's see if I can't share it. Deep research. How do I share this gem? Share? Oh, I can't share. That's too bad. Oh, well, sorry about that. You can copy the prompt. What else? I think I'm gonna wrap the video here. No, I'm not. I'm gonna mention one last thing just about the content playbook. You can check a previous video, but you're gonna see this in real time. This is why watching this video, if you even check in every once in a while, wow, I'm red. I need it. Do I have a filter on this thing? What is going on? Didn't realize this is red. Oh, crazy. But you'll be watching me in real time implement the stuff that I talk about on this channel across the entire internet. So on my other channel, soon Instagram, soon Medium, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, TikTok, all of these channels. So the thing that I'm thinking about is how do I do the highest leverage stuff, least amount of effort, highest ROI, kind of like the ICE method. And so one of them I'm thinking about is, well, with Instagram, I hate the idea of faceless, but maybe I try something like this stupid dinosaur where could I put interesting stats about or news about AI that stands out? This would require way less work. I can use a Perplexity prompt that I wrote to generate the backgrounds, and then the text is really easy because then you can use Canva. And this is an example of somebody doing this. But that's something I'm thinking about with this content playbook that I have, which is in here. And I outline every single step of what I'm going to be doing and the tools, and then how I plan to grow to millions of people learning about AI so that they can learn more and be more successful. That's it for the video today. Happy Saturday. These go out a day after, so it's Sunday when this is getting uploaded. But I love making these videos. I love when you guys write comments. I got one and I was telling my fiance about it. I'm like, I got a comment. And it was my birthday 2 days ago. That's why that's there. So drop a comment below if this was helpful. And I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and all the resources for this video, like the whiteboard and the prompts and anything that we talk about will be on my website, just parkerx.com/blog. See. Oh, I got to make a prompt thumbnail. The name of this video is going to be how to validate ideas. And I'm going to be looking at a list of icons that are right here. That's one option. Or looking like I'm pale and dead because I didn't validate the idea, which was me like the last 3 years. Okay. See ya.